Our topic in this segment is things that only a VA-accredited attorney or representative can do for you. So why hire a VA lawyer or rep? I think that's a question that a lot of people have. Are you just hiring someone to file paperwork on your behalf? Can I do this myself? Aren't there a million services online that will help me fill out this paperwork? And the answer is yes, we can do some more things for you than just filling out your paperwork, and we absolutely can do a lot more. We actually have some unique tools and value adds to bring to veterans out there who want assistance with their VA disability claim from an accredited rep.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this segment, we're going to talk about a few of those tools. We have the CAR program, VA System Access, which is absolutely critical to our practice. We have our years of experience. CCK Law has been in existence now for 20 years, over 20 years. And so lots of experience here. And with that comes skills, courtroom skills that we've learned over the years, and also the relationships that we have built both within the VA legal community and with VA itself, with the people that work there. So we're going to talk about all of these tools and advantages that accredited agents and attorneys have.
So to get us started, there's something known as a claim accuracy request, or you might hear it called CAR. And this allows a VA-accredited attorney or representative to request a expedited review or appeal of a denied claim.
Right.
We use these a lot, and I can say from personal experience that they come with great success. There are specific rules that you have to follow in order to file a CAR review. But say a veteran receives a decision, an unfavorable decision, and their options are to go to the board, and it could take a long time before you receive a decision at the board, gather additional evidence, file a supplemental claim. Maybe a veteran doesn't need to submit any additional evidence. They've submitted the evidence, they've submitted the argument that they think they need to win the case. But they just need someone to review the case again and make a different decision, frankly. So what a CAR allows you to do is within 30 days of receiving a decision, it allows an accredited attorney or representative only to take that decision and file an appeal. And it's essentially an appeal on a higher level review form. It's the same form. You have to clearly mark that it's a claims accuracy request review, CAR.
There's 2 R's there.
But within 30 days, VA has said that they will attempt to deliver a decision. And we have seen that be mostly true. This often comes in handy when you can identify what VA calls an obvious, whatever that means, error in law or fact. And so we typically use this to identify procedural errors, usually in the context of identifying an earlier effective date for a claim. VA does this thing often where you file a supplemental claim, they grant the condition, but it's only back to the date that you file a supplemental claim, even if you filed an intent to file almost a year prior.
Right.
Or maybe the supplemental claim is actually a supplemental claim appeal.
Continuous pursuit.
It's a continuous pursuit of an underlying issue that has maybe dated back 5 years. VA takes the supplemental claim appeal and grants back to the date you submitted the supplemental claim appeal because they're mistaking the appeal with what they think it is, which is a claim, which is incorrect.
Right.
And so a CAR is our ability to take that decision and quickly turn it around, identifying the obvious error in law, and then get a decision for our clients pretty quickly. And we've been quite successful with that.
And it's good for obvious factual errors, too. You mentioned some legal procedural problems, but for example, things like, there's no evidence the veteran served in Southwest Asia. Therefore, PACT Act presumptions don't apply. The DD-214 clearly shows, not only were you in Iraq, but you got, a Purple Heart for an injury you had there. So really obvious factual errors. This allows veterans to fast track an appeal, get the right decision without having to go through what can be a lengthy process to appeal it either with a supplemental claim or, heaven forbid, take it to the board and waiting in line for years.
Yeah, that's a great point. I can't tell you how many times I'm on the phone with a veteran and what they say to me is that This is in the record.
Right.
This is clearly marked in the record, and VA just overlooked it. And as someone who has been doing this for a while, I can believe that VA overlooked it. Newer practitioners might say, it seems unlikely that VA would overlook something so obvious. But they do. And to your point, it's nice to have the ability as an accredited attorney to be able to tell the client, well, there's a remedy here, right? You don't have to sit for months and years and wait for VA to correct this obvious error.
Right.
We've got something that we can do here to fix it for you.
That's great. All right. Another tool that an accredited attorney has in their toolbox is access to VA systems.
It's a big one. Yeah.
And this is something that we've had as attorneys and agents have had to fight for a long period of time. And not every accredited attorney or agent uses this. So you make sure to ask when you're considering hiring someone, do you have VBMS access?
Not VA.gov, right?
No, not VA.gov. You want someone who has access to the Veterans Benefit Management System,
Yes.
which is where VA keeps the electronic record for every veteran's claims file. So that file that VA has is your case file. Any other type of legal work, litigation, let's say, car accident, PI, your attorney's going to have a case file for you. It's going to have all your medical records. Going to have police reports. It's going to have any pleadings that were submitted to the court on your behalf, discovery that gets taken. And so think of this like your claims file. It's electronically stored and maintained by VA. So all your service personnel records, your service medical records, the claims you filed, anything you've written to VA, phone calls you've made that have been notated, all of those are stored in VBMS. And so the ability to see in real time what VA has, how they've recorded it, what they're marking it as.
That's an important piece, the notes.
Yeah, who's looked at it.
You can see sometimes the steps that VA has taken on your claim and where your case is being sent and who's working on it.
Exactly. Yeah. So it really is a vital piece of information. And frankly, I don't think that you can really operate this in the level you need to with today's complexities, especially in the AMA, without VBMS access. So accredited attorneys have access to this. They have to go through a process to get access. You have to get a PIV card from VA to go get fingerprinted. You have to maintain certain CLE requirements and certain trainings. You have to maintain access to it. And there's a lot of rules and safeguards in place, as there should be, because this is super sensitive information. But, it's really vital to have access to this. And so critical that VA accredited attorneys can get it. There's a couple other internal programs that VA uses that accredited attorneys can get access to. One is Share, and that's huge. And that's the payment history that VA gives. So we can check and see, is the veteran getting their checks? Is it the right amount? When has that payment been issued? And that really alleviates a lot of confusion and frankly, concern on our clients' parts.
Yeah, veterans call up and they say, hey, I haven't received my check. If you don't have VBMS access or access to Share, actually, you wouldn't be able to look for them and see, oh yeah, it's been issued. It's maybe a paper check, you can tell. It might take a couple days. Or no, VA has not. Let us reach out for you.
Right.
You're really flying blind if you don't have access to Share because it's difficult to know what VA is doing with a veteran's payment.
Right. And one other program that we can access, but very limited, we don't have good insight or view into this, is CaseFlow, which is the board's case management system. I wish we had a better insight into what goes on in there, but at least it allows us to see high level what's happening with an appeal at the board.
Experience matters. And like all things in life, the more you do something, the more experience you have with it. At CCK, we have over 500 years of collective experience, which is, I know.
That's bananas.
I almost didn't believe it myself. I had to look it up.
I didn't believe it. You wanted to fact check that one?
But it just goes to show, working thousands of cases builds that muscle. You know what to do instinctively in a veteran's case. You know which theories work, which theories don't work, which theories of secondary service connection work, which don't. You know which medical opinions you might need to get, which ones you can't get. And so the experience of having an accredited representative really does make a difference in a veteran's case.
Yeah. And you talked about experience. That experience also applies to courtroom experience. So at CCK, we have a very large practice before the CAVC, Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. And the CAVC was founded in the 1980s to provide veterans a legal route to challenge decisions by VA. Before that, it was the board reviewing what VA had done, except the board is part of VA. So it was VA saying, yes, we did it right. So you can only imagine what that era was like. But now we have the CAVC, which is a federal appellate court outside of the VA system. And it is very different, though, than practicing before VA because it's adversarial versus non-adversarial. So there is an attorney on the other side representing VA and their interests. And you have to be versed in appellate practice. Appellate practice is different from regular trial work and litigation for those attorneys out there that are watching, that are thinking about, dipping their toes into VA world. And maybe I'll start with a CAVC case. It is not just your standard lawsuit. It is an appeal. So you're looking at questions of law. You have to understand the appellate procedure and the steps that need to be taken to get a favorable result for your client. And so, working with a firm that has accredited VA attorneys that also have CAVC experience can be really helpful to veterans, particularly when they have a complex legal issue that we know is not going to get resolved by the board. It's going to have to go to court to get sorted out.
Yeah. Finally, the last thing is sometimes who you know is better than what you know. Not always, but sometimes.
Yep.
And the fact is that as big as VA is, the veterans legal community is rather small.
Right.
And so having established relationships with both other practitioners and people within VA can make a difference in a veteran's case. Now, I'm not suggesting we can call up the local regional office and say, hey, let's bump this guy's case.
We in fact
That's
cannot.
Unethical.
Well,
we do not do that. We cannot do that.
And we can't do that. Even if we wanted to, they can't do it.
Exactly.
It's in a national work queue.
That's not what we're talking about. But what we're talking about here is knowing the right lever to pull in a certain situation. And so, for an example, it happens all too often, unfortunately. A veteran files a claim or an appeal, and they haven't heard anything from VA for months and months. And they're wondering, does VA even have my claim? And sometimes the answer is they have it, but they don't know they have it.
Right.
They haven't established, in their work queue, the correct task, if you'll call it that. It's called an end product, but that's a technical term, to work the particular claim or appeal. And so using VA systems, which you talked about a little bit earlier, we would be able to take a look and see that that is in fact the case, and then know the correct person to reach out at the regional office to say, hey, look, we submitted this, the veteran submitted this on this certain date. We can see that it's not pending. That's why there's no action been taken on it in months. Can we get it established? We're not saying how to grant it or whatever, or even when to grant it, but we need you to put it on your radar and flag it so that the case gets worked.
Right.
Things like that, knowing the correct hearing coordinator to reach out to. There are various hearing coordinators all throughout the country. And there's a list of those hearing coordinators. You have to contact the correct hearing coordinator if you want to make sure that a hearing is properly scheduled or withdrawn in a timely way. So kind of knowing, like I said before, which buttons to push, which levers to pull in the appropriate situation, who to speak to, who not to speak to, who to avoid. It does make a difference in a veteran's case.
Absolutely. And while we can't, push things through necessarily faster than any other veteran's claim, what an accredited attorney with experience and connections can do is avoid unnecessary delay that might happen if someone wasn't keeping an eye on this. Also comes super important when it comes time to a veteran getting paid, right? Making sure that VA has issued that retroactive payment. What is the holdup? We know who to contact to find out. Why is this going, under another level of review? Are there offsets happening? Contacting those fee coordinators can be really helpful to veterans, especially at the end when they're like, all right, VA's granted me this benefit. Where's my compensation?
Yep, exactly.